welcome to another episode of the Keeping It Real with KJ podcast. I'm your host KJ, and welcome to another episode. As promised, I decided that I was going to make another episode this weekend, and hopefully in the following weekends to come. But I do have some good news that I will get to later on that could possibly prevent the every weekend podcast from happening. But I will keep these up. I appreciate all the positive feedback. I appreciate the negative feedback because if I just get positive comments, which I'm glad to have those, don't get me wrong, but I am glad to know that there are people out there that want to see me improve. So I appreciate those comments as well. Um, you know, this week has been a roller coaster, a literal roller coaster, and what I can say is I remember starting this week off in such a terrible mood. I don't know what it was, but I was in my feelings a lot towards the beginning of the week. You know, and it's very rare that I'm, moody, like moody to the point to where other people can like feel the negativity coming from me. And, but this week I couldn't hold it in, and I think everyone has those days. Some people have those weeks, but let me tell you, when I tell you God opened up doors this week for me, He tremendously worked miracles in my life this week. Um, Towards the beginning of the month, I remember I was sitting at the table because we went to have breakfast at my sister's job. And I prayed that the Lord, I asked my family to really pray for me to be able to, get some good news about a job. And I remember I got a call last Tuesday about a job, but I was not going to be able to start it immediately. So I was like, okay, well, that's not too good because it's like, I feel like as an adult, you can't really go, I don't even want to use vague words like that. As an adult, you can't go months without having a job if you have bills. you know, and I'm in a blessed position. I don't have many right now. You know, I have my credit card bill, my phone bill. I had to pay for things for myself, of course, the necessities. But I know there's a lot of people in different positions who have so much more on their plate. And, with this economy right now, it's really hard to sustain and, live a happy life with, these prices going up and gas, groceries, things like that. So, anyways, when I got that call last week, I was just so nervous and so stressed. And I tried not to let it show at all, but my family could tell. And I'm the type of person, and my sister made me aware of this, and I didn't even realize it. She said, sometimes when you have problems, you isolate yourself. And, whenever someone tells me something I'm doing, I like to have specifics, like tell me what I'm doing so I can change it. And when she told me that, I was like, you know what? I've noticed that I do that. And I know there's people out there that truly care for me and want to know what's going on. So I did vow that I would try to open up a lot more because, holding it in, I realized it doesn't do any good. It actually hurts you in the long run. So, you know, so this week, as I stated earlier, it started off bad, but, once Wednesday came around, I think it was Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. I had an interview and oh my goodness, I got a text message from my grandma, and she was basically said, and this was before the interview, she said, God bless you, congratulations on the new job, and I love you. And like, that was the motivation I need, because she believes, and we call her Grammy, she just believes that, if you speak it into existence and you believe in God and you have faith in Him, He will work wonders in your life. And There were times this month that I really, and as a devout Christian, there were times this month that I was just like, Lord, where are you? When I tell you that He showed up and showed out this week, I cannot even explain it. Um, I had an interview. Before the interview was even over completely, they already told me I got the job. And I was so happy. I already had a feeling I was going to get the job because, my mom works there, and, you know, and I have a pretty good resume. So, I was happy about that. So I was like, okay, I'll go on with my day. But I still can't start that job until June. So I needed something else, you know, for the meantime. And the next day, my aunt calls me and tells me there's a position open at her store, a part-time position. And I was like, oh, really? And she was like, yeah, whenever you're free for an interview, you can come in. So I had an interview this morning, and the manager, I don't, she only asked one question, and the rest she didn't even, she said, boy, you were already hired before you walked in here. So I was like, thank you, Jesus. Like, sometimes I look on my social media and just see so many people, not believing in God, and I have living proof that He exists, because none of this could have happened this week or this month if it weren't for God. You know, I I fight a lot of my battles in prayer. And there's some friends that I can tell everything to. And there's some that I can't. And that was another part of the stress, because I just feel like this month the Lord has really been opening my eyes about different people. And He really put a few people in my mind that, I probably should reevaluate my relationship with them. And, you know, I can't remember if I said this in our last episode, but one thing that I have trouble doing is letting go, unfortunately. And there's a lot of people that come to me for advice, and I'm quick to say, you know what? You need to let these people go. You deserve better. You need to set better goals for yourself, and your friendships and your circle need to mimic that. And I realized that I wasn't following that myself. So, you know, there has been people that I've distanced from. There's been people that I've chosen not to be combative with, because I realize that if I respond in the way they want me to respond, I'm only giving in to what they want me to give into. And as a 23-year-old man who is focused on future, focused on, just making a living, right now, because I'm still, even though it's been 3 months since I graduated, I'm still adjusting to this life after college. So, you know, I just had to decide for myself. I can't put myself in situations where I'm going to stress myself out, because, you know, I just feel like when there comes a point and there comes a time in your life where you're just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And I remember there were times a few years ago, and some people that know me, personally, and that's probably going to watch this, probably knows this. But there were times a few years ago that I realized that I was a what starter, and you guys can fill in the blanks. And I think it was because I had so much free time on my hands, and I became bolder in my voice, because I was such an introvert back when I was a kid. And then when I transitioned into college, I found my voice, and I stopped letting people walk all over me, because That was an issue that I used to have. I was a doormat, and whenever someone would try to bully me, I would shut it down because I've dealt with so much. And I don't tell everyone what I've dealt with because there's just some people that you can tell that to, and there's some people that you can't. And when there's people that are assuming that I can do something or behave in a certain way, they don't know my life story. I'm not saying that I have had a traumatic past. I've, of course, had ups and downs. I feel like everyone has. But there were things that I went through. I feel when I started to kind of come out of my shell, that has changed me into the man that I am today. And of course, I'm still flawed. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to claim that I'm perfect, but I can say with 100% certainty that I am 100% better than I was before. Excuse me. And I give that all to God. You know, like I said in the last episode, I will be talking about God a lot in these podcasts because God played such a significant role in my life. I cannot even explain it. And I just remember when I was lost, you know, I used to think that God was just like this genie or like this fairy, if I prayed for something, he was going to give it to me. And that I feel like that's a lot of kids' mentalities, because we're taught in children's church or Sunday school at a young age that you pray to God, and you have faith in him and he will deliver. But I had to grow and learn that it's not always about what we want. It's what is according to his will. What is going to be best for us and what is going to help us serve him more. Because everything we should be doing as Christians should be for his glory. So, you know, and it took me a while to learn that. And now, since I'm more advanced in my faith, I am proud to say I am so glad that I didn't get everything that I asked God for. I remember my dream car. I prayed to God. I said, Lord, I want a Tesla so bad. And I'm so glad I didn't get a Tesla because one, those things are expensive. Two, the repairs would be absolutely insane. And then three, the malfunctions that has been going on with them. I'm kind of glad I didn't go into that. But if that is something that the Lord wants me to have in the future, I will gladly accept it because what my pastor taught me is that sometimes when we pray to God, the responses he'll give us is yes, no, or not yet. So there's some things that I may have prayed for that, the Lord may see, the Lord may want to give that to me, but it's not the right time for me to have it. There were times that I was praying for a relationship you know, and I have talked to girls and I don't know, it was just I don't know how to describe it. I feel like I was not fully ready because I don't think you appreciate the single life as much until you're single. You know, I get to do what I want. Right now, I'm about to have two jobs. If I were in a relationship, I would not be able to even manage that. Two jobs and then trying to make sure, that your partner is happy and secure, you know, that'd be a lot. So I trust in God that whenever that time comes, He will bring that person into my life. So, and I'm picky too. I'm not gonna even lie. I remember last year my friend and I, he's from my discipleship group. We were sitting down at lunch and we were just talking about our types. And he was not the type of person that would talk about girls ever. So whenever we did, I was just like, okay. And we were talking about each other's types. And I realized that I am so much more pickier than I thought I was. And I think going to college kind of, caused me to be like that because there were so many sorority girls. I have nothing against sorority girls, but there were so many sorority girls there that I just wasn't, as long as you're a Christian and as long as you're someone who is kind, respectful, genuine, and of course pretty, that is the person that I will want to, you know, enter into a relationship with. But as long as it's according to God's will, because it's like I don't want to jump ahead of God, because there's been times that I was so desperate. Well, I don't want to say desperate, but there was a time, I should say, when I was younger and I was with this girl. It didn't even really last long. I don't even know if I want to consider that a relationship, but she was so clingy, and I was like, yeah, I'm so not ready for this. But it's like, I feel like whenever you're around people with boyfriends or girlfriends, you feel as if you don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend, you are left out. And it's like, in reality, you're not, because the single life is fun. And I'm not saying, when you're in a relationship, that's not fun. But enjoy being single, you know? Do what you want, because whenever you have a relationship and you are not there to answer the phone all the time, that may be a problem. So, I think it's really best to just take your time, you know? And I've had to learn that. Because there was times I tried to be in relationships while I was in college, but I couldn't manage it. I had one girl, she told me I deserve to be treated like a queen. I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. Um, I just made school a priority. As some people make work their priority, people with families make their family priority. You know, I was 20 at the time, so I was just so focused on getting my degree and getting out. So I went down a lot of rabbit holes. I started off talking about my week and then ended talking about relationships, but I would like for anyone that's listening to this, I'm gonna post a link to my Instagram and possibly my Snapchat. I would like for you all to give feedback or comment down below and tell me what your thoughts about these types of topics are. And also I would also like for you guys to DM me and tell me what should I talk about, and if it's something that I'm interested in, I might do it. I don't really do reaction videos much anymore. Unless I do it on my Instagram, which I have two Instagram accounts. There's one account which is my main, and then my second is where I do a lot of the reaction posts because I react to a lot of political content, and whenever I do it on my main, I get warnings, and it's like I don't want that page taken down because I'm saying something crazy. So I decided to make another one. Feel free to follow my socials. I will attach them in the description. And I hope you all have a great rest of your evening or day whenever you're listening to this. And please leave a comment down below letting me know what you would like for me to talk about next. And I hope you all have a blessed evening. Take care.